Right, welcome back to the Joy Hour podcast. Today I am in the studio and been looking forward to this episode here with my friend Paul Stroessner. Paul has quite the story that we're going to get into here. He currently a computer programmer of over 2 decades. He's on a transformative journey, aiming to reinvent his life as a writer while pursuing a unique challenge of running a 5K in every state. That's awesome. His passion for storytelling led him to host the podcast Inspiring Journeys, where he shares the remarkable stories of his guests, aiming to inspire others with their experiences and lessons learned along the way. Through his own pursuits and the stories he curates, Paul embodies the spirit of growth, resilience, and the pursuit of one's passions, showing that it's never too late to embark on a new path and find fulfillment in life's adventures. I get just excited just reading through that. And I'm on a transformative journey myself, and I'm so thankful to be connecting with you again. One of the very first podcasts I did was actually on with you on Inspiring Journeys, and I was the guest, and new to that and still very new to podcast world. But you made me feel, as a guest, been waiting to say this for a while. You made me feel special. In all seriousness, Paul, from when we first talked, and had a couple phone calls, and then you and Carrie and being on, and then the biggest thing too, besides just the episode, was when you posted, and I was reading about myself, and I'm like, that's what Paul thinks of me. That's cool. That's awesome. And you obviously did your research on my story, but you put together a couple different clips I saw you posted, and then a few weeks later you kind of put together about 6 or 7 of your guests all together, and
Yeah.
I felt like family with a few of them. I've actually connected with a few of them since then. So keep it up. You are inspiring people by having a platform with Inspiring Journeys to get us on there like that. And so from the receiving end of it being on yours, I hope that I can return that today, and just want you to know sincerely that's how I feel. I think it's one of the first or second times I've ever been on somebody else's podcast as a guest. And so welcome to be a guest today on the Joy Hour podcast.
Oh, thank you so much, Tom. I really appreciate it. Thank you for inviting me on here. It's been a while since I've been on somebody else's podcast, so this is a treat for me as well. Thank you. And
Yeah.
I always begin my podcast with saying something I'm grateful for. So I'll keep the tradition going up here. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
grateful for you bringing me on here to help share my story. And also, on a personal note, I'm grateful that the days are getting longer now. I like seeing the light when it's a little after 5 a.m. when I'm up and everything. So, and I'm gaining a lot of momentum now. So I'm very grateful for that. So yeah, thank you so much for this. And
Well, thank you.
and
I'll roll right into that tradition real
mhm.
quick. And thank you for saying that. What came to mind is being grateful for the connections that happen and the ability to use technology to connect. You are a few miles away from me. I'm in Washington State, so not downtown Seattle, but the general area, Auburn,
Right.
so right close to SeaTac Airport here. And you are
I'm
the other side of the
yeah,
country.
like 3,000 miles away. I'm in Rhode Island, so I was
Yeah, and
born
we
and
have
raised
not
here.
yet, we haven't met in person
Uh,
yet, but we've connected through a few phone
phone,
calls and
yeah,
videos, and
yeah, yeah.
I'm grateful for that.
Yes, as I know there's a lot of problems with technology, people addicted to technology, but it also has its good points, and this is like to take advantage of the good pieces of it. And I I really appreciate what you said about the podcast because I really feel that way about every guest that we've had on. It feels like family, and we're just honored that um, our guests feel comfortable enough to share their stories with us. Especially you, you had an incredible story, and I don't think too many people that have been through what you've been through would be willing to share that much. So thank you for that. That was an honor.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And that does once again confirms that I'm supposed to, is I feel in life that each person, as we grow in age, we all go through different things. However, they have a lot of similarities if you really get into it. But to use technology, it was just 5 months ago I even listened to a podcast ever. And now it's like every day when I'm at the gym or anywhere I'm podcast, I'm just listening to other people's and what a great tool it is to be used properly. Instead of just filling my ears full of the news or something negative that makes me feel down, I hear somebody else's story and I go, wow, like that helps so much knowing I'm not alone in struggles I've had, struggles I still have. And so I know there's a fair amount of similarities in what you're doing, what we're trying to do here with letting people just have that opportunity. Tell it like it is. Tell us how you've got through things, what you're going through. Share some good, uplifting, encouraging words with people from a voice of humility and vulnerability. And just, I'm glad I've been in these rooms with you and with CLS, of course. What a great group, a great family there, meeting so many people of like mind that, not necessarily like mind and we all see things the same, but like mind that it's important to share, that it's important to be real. So thank you, and excited to hear about Paul today. I know you got a lot going on. And how many states have you already done the 5K in? How many states are you at?
12 different ones so far. So cool. Things kind of I stalled out at 10 before the pandemic hit, and then I just started it back up again last year, so I knocked a couple more out. But it's working out, and it's been quite a journey.
Well, when you get to Washington State, make sure give me plenty of notice if you want me to try and keep up with you, because I'm not a runner. I can ride my bike next to you pretty easy, but you make sure you give me plenty of notice. You come to the Pacific Northwest.
Oh, definitely. I'm looking forward to that. And we've spoken off air before. For a short time, I was in the Navy, and I was stationed in Oakland Naval Hospital. So I did live on the West Coast for a little bit, and I did make my way up to Portland one weekend for an event, and it was beautiful there. It happened to be a perfectly sunny weekend, perfect temperature, everything was green, so I loved it up there. Yeah, I'm looking forward to going to Washington State. Yes.
Come in this time of year. June, July, August are beautiful. I love it. It's home. I've been here all my life. Year round it's different, but we got a lot of outdoor life.
Exactly.
Rivers and lakes and hiking.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm assuming there's a lot of parks and everything. So yes, that sounds great. The furthest west I've been, as far as the races are concerned, is Colorado. So I love that there. I have family there, so that was really nice. So so I guess I could probably tell you my journey, how this all began.
I was gonna jump in. Please do. Yeah.
When I was going into high school, I had gone to a Catholic school for most of my elementary and then junior high school days, and so I was going to like a big public high school for the first time, and I have a cousin that's the same age as me, and he was starting at the same time as me, and my birthday falls just before school starts at the beginning of September. So they were over at my house, and we were talking about the upcoming school year. And then my aunt told me that my cousin's doing this sport called cross country, and she thought I might like it. And I had no idea what that was. you go across the country? What's that? And she said, no, it's running. I'm like, running across the country, and then they kind of explained to me how it's kind of like trail racing, and I had nothing going on. I mostly played baseball at the time, and that wasn't baseball season, so I decided to give it a try. So I tested myself out. I had my tennis shoes on and ran around the block, so I decided to try that. And then And then like my first, and I hadn't done any practices. That first meet was like the first weekend that I signed up for the team, and I had no idea what to expect. And it it was great going through all woods and everything, and but I had no idea what I was doing. I had a friend that I hadn't seen since elementary school, and he was starting to do cross country. So we were like walking half the time and talking and catching up, like a little stroll. But then we ran a little bit. So, and then the more I did it, the more I was learning about the sport, and I really fell in love with it. Just being out in nature and doing these races, I don't know, just something about it that really grabbed me. Yeah, so then I eventually, by senior year, I became cross country captain. And then afterwards, I never really stuck with running. I joined the Navy after I graduated high school. I had no direction, so I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I went to college, community college for a semester, and that just didn't work out at all. I didn't pass anything. So I ended up joining the Navy, trying to get discipline and direction, and I became a cook. And like I said, I ended up getting stationed in Oakland, and then the Gulf War started, the Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm. So I was on the hospital ship Mercy that whole time. So that was quite an experience. I'm happy I did that, and it got me to, that was the first time I left the country. We stopped at different countries like the Philippines, Singapore, and then countries in the Middle East like Bahrain and Dubai. So it really opened up my world to seeing different cultures, different people and everything. And so I really enjoyed that. And then since I was cooking, I was a good cook, so I was gaining weight from all the good food I was making. So every once in a while, I'd try running again, start losing the weight, and so that was like the extent of my running. And then I got out of the Navy. Then I went back to school. I went back to that same community college, and I ended up graduating with high honors. And then I got my associate's degree, and then I went to Bryant College. It's now Bryant University. Is one of the best business colleges in the country. And then I got a degree in computer CIS, computer information systems, and I became a computer programmer for a medical software company, and I'm still at that job. So I have like this desk job and not really moving a lot, so I gained weight, and I was getting sick of it. So and I was married at the time, and my wife had gotten me a gym membership, so I decided to I went to the gym, and I went for about a year. I learned all the weights and everything, how to do all the weights, and I wasn't really seeing much results. So then I decided to hire a personal trainer, and so that's where I met my trainer, Adriana. And the first session, I mentioned to her that I was a cross country captain, and this was in October of 2013. And I told her that I did cross country. She says, "Oh, there's a downtown jingle in December in Providence, and I could have you running a 5K by then." And so I was in December, so I had from October till December to be able to run 5K, 3.1 miles. And then I did it, and that was the first race I did since my senior year cross country. So, and I did it without stopping. She ran with me the whole time, and it was totally different than high school, because this positive energy was incredible, and it was such a great time, and no pressure or anything. It was a lot of fun, all kinds of music going, all partying. So I loved it. And then the next thing, of course, we couldn't stop there. The next thing she wanted to get me into was obstacle course racing. So I started training for that. There was a group of us that we would go to a park here, state park. It's called Colt State Park, and we were training, doing all kinds of like obstacle training, and then that May of 2014 we did the race, and there was one obstacle. It's like about a mile and a half in of the 5K, and you go on these barrels that are in the water, and you jump from barrel to barrel, and then you get off at the end. But we had torrential rain the night before, so there was water where there shouldn't have been water. So I got to the end of the barrels, and then I had to jump off to, continue on. And I landed in the water, and there was a big rock that I didn't see, and my ankle just slammed into the rock, and it twisted at the same time. And so that was pretty brutal. And I kept running anyway. So I don't know how to quit. And that was tough because there's all kinds of mud and everything, and trying to rip my foot out of the mud while I have this bad ankle. So I ended up finishing, and then when I got home and took my muddy sock and shoe off, my ankle just blew up. So that put me out of commission for a while. And then I started running again in the summer, trying to warm back up. And then I did a race, a local 5K. It was called Finish for a Guinness, and there was a charity for that it's called Christopher Stone Fund, and it's fought against ALS, because Christopher Stone was the husband of one of the girls that organizes the race, and he passed away from ALS at the age of 31. And again, it was this huge party atmosphere, but it was for an amazing cause. I had no idea that they did charities for 5Ks, so that really lit me up. And then I might have done a couple other races after that, but my ankle, I was probably running before I should have, and then my ankle started getting really bad again, so I had to stop until the next year. And then the following summer, I started running again, and on one of my runs in this beautiful area, when you're like on a good run, you just like lose yourself. You go into some kind of meditation, and these ideas came to me that I love to travel, especially like going back to my Navy days and stuff. But even as a family, when I was younger, we would go away a lot in the summers and everything. So I love traveling. I loved writing, and so I decided to combine the traveling, running, and writing to do like a blog, and I called it Journey of TheRhodeRunner. I spelled road like Rhode Island. And I wanted to bring attention to the charity of each race. So I would promote, so I look for races with good charities and promote them. So it started as a blog. And the first race I did was the Finish for a Guinness. I did that one again to officially launch my Journey of the Roadrunner. And this was in 2015. It was 2015, 2016. Okay. Yeah. And then eventually podcasting became bigger. So then I kind of transitioned over to podcasting. So I started podcasting Journey of the Roadrunner. And we did 100 episodes altogether of that. It was like a combination of talking about the races I did and the, other people in the health and fitness industry. We talked a lot about mental fitness and everything too, like physical and mental health. We talked about, we'd have some guests on, and yeah. So I did that with Adriana, my trainer. So yeah, and I fell in love with podcasting.
If I could jump in, so
sure.
I don't forget this. Adriana was the trainer you mentioned back in 2013.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if I could take you back just to that moment when you first met her and the place you were mentally, physically, maybe even emotionally, anything come to mind that you'd share as far as what it's like to be on maybe the receiving end of somebody? I'm guessing she probably spoke into your life some encouragement at a time that was needed, and how it seems like, from what I know of you, you're doing that as well, and seeing others maybe in a light that they don't see themselves, and how important that is in life. But am I right? That's kind of maybe what happened with when you met Adriana?
Oh, yeah. Because also at that time was when I was starting to go through my divorce. So yeah, so it was a tough time, like physically and mentally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's just funny how things just fall into place like that.
Well, and I want to capture that, and I think that's so important for everyone that's listening to remember the importance we have to each other,
Hmm.
and slowing down at times in life to just speak into each other's lives, and whether that's fitness, um, that's a great starting point. You know, I have fought all my life weight issues and still do. I'm kind of sucking it in right now, but I had a big lunch. I've been up almost 300 pounds and down to 220
Oh
and
wow.
everything in between all my life. Yeah, roller coaster.
Hmm.
I got pants that are 34 waist all the way to 40 inch, and I keep them all just in case I go back and forth. I
Depending
got
what season,
so
yeah.
many sizes. But man, when I'm a size 40 and I'm up there in my weight, I do feel down in
Hmm.
every area of life, my mental health, discouragement and stuff. But I picked up on that when you were sharing that probably was a pretty critical season of your life to have. At some point, she must have been a total stranger, but to speak into your life and encourage you and say, "Hey, you can do this 3 miles, or you can do this 5K, or you can do this." Um, we'll move on, but just I wanted to capture how important that is to every day look at somebody else and maybe be able to even just a smile, a word of encouragement. Never know what other people are going through, and
Hmm.
now you look, what is it, 10 years later since you've met her, almost 12 years, or
Yeah,
it's been quite a
11
while since
years.
you've met
Yeah.
her. Yeah, and you're still in touch with each other, I'm sure.
I just had her this morning. I still go to her for training. Yeah.
There you
Yeah.
go. And you turn that, you live, you learn, you repeat to somebody else. But I've had people in my life that do that. I'm sure doing my best to turn around to people. And it's not always younger people. Sometimes you're even speaking into somebody's life that might be older, but they're going through a season where you need to see something in them and encourage them and say, no, you got this. And that weight loss or that energy spent in exercise can really start to play into mental health. And I guess so much of my mind is really on this topic right now with May being Mental Health Awareness Month. But go ahead and
Okay.
continue. I just wanted to make sure we touch into the importance of trainers slash coaches slash friends that speak into each other. It's important.
Oh, yeah. The funny thing about that is the first month when I joined the gym, they had some program. So I had another trainer, and it was like we would do a group class, and they talk about like eating, and then she showed us some of the exercises, and I think it was about
Mhm.
like maybe it was about a 4 to 6 week program, and then after that I was just trying stuff on my own, and then um, one time I was on an elliptical machine and I saw Adriana with a client walking across, and then there was like area where you do exercises, and she was having her client do all these crazy exercises. It looked brutal. I was like, oh man, I would never want her for a trainer. So then,
Then that's the one you need.
yeah. But yeah, and Dawn was my original trainer. So then when I decided to make the move and get a trainer, I was going to have her, but she had a major injury, and they didn't even know if she was gonna come back at all. So they asked if they'd give me somebody else instead, and I said, "Oh, that's fine. You can pick one." And of course, they picked Adriana.
Oh, oh. Oh, that's hilarious. And she knows this, right?
Oh
Because
yeah,
she won't.
yeah,
When she, yep, okay, she's gonna be like, "You never picked me."
yeah.
Great.
Yes, because she's good friends with Dawn. Eventually came back, but yeah, and Dawn was on my original podcast as well. But yeah, I joke about that when they're together around me, I was like, "Ooh, awkward," but they don't give up.
Well, having a good trainer or coach is not typically somebody that's also your just kickback, a friend, associate,
Hmm.
um, just like an accountability partner. If I got to be accountable to, somebody that's pretty hardcore, and it's different than somebody that's like, yeah, you can be accountable to me, kind of nonchalant.
Hmm.
But if somebody's like, no, you said you're going to do this, and they hold you to it, that's beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Much like how we were talking about how the guests on my podcast is like family now. It's the same thing with her. All her clients, it's we're all a big family of hers. She even has a big, huge party every summer, and we all go, and we're all friends together and everything. It's a huge group that she has. Yeah, it's like a family that under her. So yeah, yeah, and maybe that was an influence on me for as far as the the podcast goes. So yeah.
And yeah, thank you. Take me to that. So you started your podcast what year? How long ago?
Let's see. This one was in the actual podcast started in 2017, but I should also go back a little bit because I was a computer programmer. But when I was 10 years old, like I was always into storytelling. Like yeah, give my age a little bit. When I was a kid, like 6 or 7, when Star Wars came out, and so that was a heavy influence on me, the hero's journey and all that. And then you'd have those Star Wars action figures, so I'd make up stories and stuff. And when I was 10 years old, I wrote my first short story. It was 23 page in a spiral notebook called The Killer.
Awesome.
And this was 4 years before Nightmare on Elm Street. This is in 1980. I was writing this guy Robbie, he fell off a roller coaster. It ran over his fingers, so he lost his fingers. Then he had knives for fingers. And this was 4 years before Nightmare on Elm Street came out. So, I joke around and say that my mom threw away my notebook, and then somebody in Hollywood picked it up and ran with my story. But I had a spiral notebook full of stories, so I loved writing. And then I for years, I don't know, I just fell away from it. And yeah, this little vulnerable part here. When I'll fast forward a little bit, ended up going back to school to get my master's degree in creative writing, and usually in those several classes, all online classes, and the first week we would give our history of writing. So I would always say that I wrote when the same thing story when I was 10 years old, and then I fell away from it for some reason. And just maybe a few months ago, I had a breakthrough and realized what happened, with my therapist. When I was in junior high school, I was bullied pretty bad, and that was probably around the time that I stopped, because then I'd go into depression, and like 12 years old, and you don't know words, or you don't know how to express yourself, and yeah. So I realized that that's when I had stopped writing, even though I loved it. Mm-hmm. And then but there was always like a little flame there. It was, even when I was in the business school, I would take other like I had a Mark Twain honors class. Anything that was English related or anything writing related, I loved it. But then I struggled with the computer courses. Go figure. But I always had this little flame of writing going. And then in 2009, I saw the movie, I don't know if you know of it, Julie and Julia. It's about this, I forgot her last name now, this girl Julie. She had a blog. She was doing a recipe from Julia Child's cookbook every day. She'd be blogging about it. So then I kind of like discovered about blogging. So after that was a heavy influence on me, so I looked into blogging. And it was a great way to get me to start writing again. So in 2010, I started a blog called Returns to the 80s, because I love all 80s pop culture and everything. I was trying to find a topic I want to write about, and I didn't want to focus just on music or just on movies. I like the whole culture, so I did a blog about that. And so I did that for several years, and then that was the first podcast I had. So I ended up, this podcast were getting bigger and bigger, and then people kept telling me I should be getting into podcasting, and then a couple of people had me on as guests, and I was on one podcast called Beats and Eats, and they were doing a series on 80s related blogs and celebrities and everything. They had me on as a guest, And then after it was over, like I had stayed on. I don't think I was supposed to be on anymore. And then the hosts were talking with each other, and they said to each other that I should have my own podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had a friend that was following me, Robert. He all this time he had been telling me that I should start a podcast, and then then when they said that, he said, "See." So then I decided to start it, and I had Robert come on as my co-host, so started it off. So that's how I got into podcasting. So that was so that was probably around 2017 when I started that, and then when I did the Journey of the Roadrunner, that started off as a blog, and I had already started podcasting Return to the 80s, so then I decided to do the same thing with Journey of the Roadrunner. So I made that a podcast as well. So I had two podcasts going on simultaneously. Not consistent with either of them, but I did it when I could. So that was the story of those podcasts.
I love it. Thank you for sharing too. Going back and looking at things that happened in younger years, I think is so important. And when people can do that and be open and vulnerable, I find that to be the most compelling part of a conversation. So I'll just go back and touch on that for a minute. For anybody that might watch this, I'm currently 46 years old. I could go back and reflect on quite a few times in my younger years where call it bullying, call it insecurity, call it I was clumsy, I was awkward, I was overweight. I definitely had a lot of personal struggles at a young age, and I was in a tiny school. I don't know how bad it would have been in a big school, but man, I was it was tough. And I think I lost a lot of my vision and a lot of my tenderness, my tender heart, all through those same years of 12, 13, 14. And then I just kind of got tough in my later years. And I'm not going to go too long about my own story, but I think you and I have some things in common by what you shared about that. And the point of this is to say, no matter what age you are now, any of you listening, pick back up where you left off. And, forgive the bullies, forgive the family. A lot of times bullies are actually in our own families.
Oh, yeah.
Or whoever it might be, the naysayers, or even our own self-doubt that says, you're not going to be an artist. You're not going to be a writer. You're not going to be. And there's that self-doubt that comes in a lot. But get in the right room. And I feel like I have had that already just in getting to know you and some others. I've been a contractor for 30 years. I thought I was going to die a contractor, and I swing a hammer really good, and that's who Tom is. And so more recently, I get encouraged, yes, when people encourage me, but I really get encouraged too when other people share their story, because it's real. It really happened. You wrote a book when you were 10, 23 pages long. You had aspirations and visions and dreams and goals, and at some point you stopped, or you paused, let's say, for a while, and then somehow you got some more encouragement, usually from somebody else that saw something in you. You should start a podcast. You should do that. And you're like, me? And then that's that fear factor of stepping out again. But just everything about what you're saying, I think, is so important for all of us to remember. Is in a short amount of time, you can change your career and do something totally different. A lot of us are tied to our careers because of our bills and cost of living. I understand that very well. But be who you want to be, and really who you wanted to be when you were 10, 11, 12 and had those dreams. Try and spend your life pursuing those things. And still, you got to pay the bills. I get that. A lot of times the jobs we want to do are the ones that they don't pay what they should. Being a teacher, being an artist, a lot of times aren't as good as a lot of other careers, and finances are such a part of everything. Every decision we make, finances are right there in just front of our mind. But as people spoken to you, I'm glad they said you should start a podcast, because that's what we're doing today.
Right.
And you inspired me when I was on yours. So don't let up, Paul. Just keep on pushing, and we still do our 9-to-5 job or whatever it is. But it's so important for people to never forget those things they thought when they were a child and they turned it off for a while. Turn it back on. Re-spark that and get in a room where people say, yeah, you can do that. Give it a shot. Give it a try. You might fall down 10 times or 100 times, but eventually, hey, here we are. Go at it. But it encourages me just hearing you share that openly, and just keep doing that when you can. And now you are over 100 episodes,
Yeah.
you said, with your podcast.
Yeah. Well, I love what you were saying there, because now that's, bringing up thoughts of me, because I feel like we all have a purpose. There's a reason why we're all here. And, sometimes we get lost, and you kind of ignore your purpose or what you're meant to do. Like, all along the way, there was signs where I should have been writing. Like, I'd write when I was in the Navy. I'd write when I was in the war. I'd write letters at home. And I just felt great writing. And then in one of my classes in the community college, there was a writing class that I took, and I did the big project was to do a big paper on something locally here in Rhode Island. So I wrote a big paper on the Gaspee, HMS Gaspee. And after the class, the teacher was like a tough teacher, and you don't usually see that in community college. She felt more like a high school teacher than a regular teacher. She'd like yell at the students and stuff, but she loved me. And then after the class was all over after the course, she told me after that she works for a magazine, and she thought that I should submit my paper to that magazine, and I just ignored it. Like, I just didn't, follow through with that for some reason. I don't know if it was imposter syndrome or I didn't feel worthy. And even when I was taking these computer classes at Bryant, but I was always drawn to the history and English part of it, but I still kept moving forward with the computer programming. So there's this pull in you, and I feel like a lot of us, when we get off track, we have that, but we just ignore it. That's how I feel about that.
Do you think, Paul, that's why a lot of times in our lives we've had internal anger, and maybe then it's turned into pointing externally? But that internal anger can be because we're running from our calling, because we're not qualified for our calling, we're scared of our calling, and we're stuck in a 9-to-5 job that it might even pay great money, but it's not who we're supposed to be. So it's that internal frustration that we carry for sometimes decades.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I think so. Especially if you see somebody else doing, you're grinding, and then you see somebody else successful, chasing their dream and something that you feel like you would love doing, but you're still stuck doing your same old grind, and you might feel like a little resentment, jealousy, whatnot. And yeah, so need to listen to yourself. I think we need to slow down and listen to ourselves.
Well, I think the last 20 or 30 years, people have done a lot more job hopping, a lot more moving around. Many years ago, they ended up being an iron worker, and they were an iron worker for 35 years or whatever.
They retired.
Yeah, that's what you did. This is my identity. This is who I am. But then and there's nothing, I'm not saying wrong with either one, other than don't run from your calling. And if you can do both,
Right.
and have a balance of doing art as a hobby, and maybe it makes a few dollars, but you're not a full-time artist, you have a different full-time job, nothing wrong with that. But to just hop around on 30 different careers that all pay good money and none of them ever tie into what our calling is, at the end of our life, what did we gain? A bunch of finances, but never really said, I'm going to try being, whatever that is to each person is why we're meant to be different. And I wish that teachers and artists and chefs and musicians got paid more. I wish that finances were a little more balanced, and it is what it is. And I'm in construction, and there's times I've made $2 an hour. There's times I've made 100, and a lot of times I've lost money too. So it's up and down in construction. But yeah, each industry and career path, it's important, but don't lose sight of at least doing what you're called to do, on the evenings or weekends, or tying it in with, you know, pursue your dreams. Pursue your dreams. Get around people that are going to encourage you, and stepping into this new area too of coaching. I never in my life thought I'd step into this, but here we go.
Right.
I just signed up for a big program that's going to help me be a coach.
Oh,
So
great.
yeah, stay tuned. The people have been speaking into my life saying that they think I would do well at it, and so I'm going to be doing schooling again for the first time. I went to a little bit of community college when I got out of high school, but mostly construction all my life. But this program and things I stepped into recently, I'm excited about starting that next week. I got a big test tomorrow in some other areas, just totally uncomfortable, out of my comfort zone in a lot of areas, and so we'll see where it goes. But
Well, that's how you grow.
yeah, it's painful.
Yeah.
Yeah, nervous and all that. But actually, I had to write a couple essays last month. I hadn't written an essay in 30 or 25 years. I don't know how long. Out of school, long time.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
so right now, currently, you are, of course, doing the 5Ks. You're doing the podcast. Are you in the middle? Are you writing a book? Or
Yes.
Tell me.
Right. Yep. So as I was blogging, the urge to do more writing just kept growing and growing and growing. Then I decided to go get a degree in creative writing because I know I was a natural at it. That's another clue where to find to know your purpose. If it's something that just comes so natural to you, that's that's what you should do. And I decided to do so I researched and I found Southern New Hampshire University. Everything was online and it had a really good reputation, and the price wasn't too bad for a degree. So I applied for that. And I thought I was going to be getting a bachelor's degree, but then they said, "Oh, you could do a master's degree. You don't need an undergrad in that field to be able to get your master's in it." And so I thought, why not? It was less time. Each course was more expensive, but it's less courses, and you get a master's degree. So it's like, so I ended up getting my master's degree in creative writing. I graduated November 2022, and I'm working on a memoir series for my journey of the Roadrunner, and I'm going to cover 10 states in each one, and yeah, each one's going to have a different story too. This first book is going to have how I got into running and my Navy days and everything, my running journey leading up to the 5Ks, and then I'm going to cover 10 states and talk about the charity, dive into the charities for each one, into their stories. And my whole journey all involves storytelling, and each charity I've done has an incredible story. So I have, as I said, I've done 12 states so far, so I have enough for the first book, so I'm working on that right now. So, and there's always challenges. I was up to 100 pages, and then I ended up losing it, so I had to start over again. But but I'm getting there. So yeah, so that's one of my goals this year, is to finish that first book.
What do you mean by losing? Yeah, what do you mean, Paul, by losing it?
I had it in. I was writing it in the Google Docs, and one day I went to go and write again, and then almost all of it was gone. I was up to 100 pages, and there was like about 15 pages. The first 15 pages were there, and it's not even. And I had edited some of that, so it was all old. So I don't know what happened. There was some kind of Google update or something, so I don't know if that messed it up. And it would have been almost better if the whole document was wiped out. Then maybe it would have been somewhere that they would have been able to recover it. But all the edits I made were totally gone, and I did all kinds of research trying to get it back and everything. And well, luckily I had started it in Microsoft Word, so I had some of it. So then I was able to import that. So yeah. So now when I'm writing, I save it because I did it in Google Docs because it gets saved in the cloud supposedly, so you don't lose it. And that's what happened.
Yeah.
So now I after I finish editing or writing a little bit, I'll save it to my laptop and then put it on an external disk. So I always have a couple of backups now. So yeah, that was brutal.
Oh.
Yeah, but again, the story of my life is resilience. I never give up. So like I figured out a way, and I'm just keep on going. So yeah.
That word was actually my very next question.
Mhm.
What's a couple of things, tools that you've used at that moment where you've got the towel, you're about to throw it in and just say, I'm done. But you didn't, right? You
Right.
held on to it. You kept going. Just what's the first things come to mind on how to be resilient when you're walking into new territory that you don't know for sure how it's going to work out? That self-doubt's coming and talking in your ear, and how do you be resilient?
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a good question. It's just something that's inside me. I just feel like I know this is what I'm supposed to be doing, so I don't give myself any options to stop. Um, I feel like if there was something in my head saying, "Oh, maybe this wasn't meant to be," then maybe it's not meant to be. But writing just feels incredible to me, incredible, and I know it's what I'm supposed to be doing. So it's like I have no choice, but this is what I'm just gonna keep doing what it takes, and if anything, it gives me more of a story to tell, so it makes things more interesting.
It does. Losing 100 pages is definitely a story, and
Right.
no, that's good. Failure's not an option, and
Mm-hmm.
keep pushing through. Um, I know, again, when I read what you wrote about me, and I'm reading about myself, going, how does he know that? Man, he nailed it. Man, that's perfect.
Thank
Like,
you.
I kept it. I shared it with my wife and some other people. I'm like, look what this guy. I met this guy. I only talked to him a little bit, and he wrote this about me. So you've got a knack for it, and then obviously you did a lot of schooling, and I'm sure you still do schooling for it. So it's some of it's natural, but you still got to work at
All
it.
right, yeah. That's why I went to school, was to more of hone my craft, and learn stuff that I know that I don't know everything. So learn as much as I can. And I'm so happy I did that. But yeah. Even though it comes natural, you still have to work at it.
Yeah. I started a little bit, I don't know, about a year ago for like one piece of paper. I'm like, Tom Lyman, am going to write a book about myself. Where do I start? And it was just nothing. And then a couple weeks ago on the airplane coming home from an event, I got really encouraged and went to Amberley Lago hosted an event in Texas. And I went there and met a lot of people, John Gordon and Ben Newman and quite a few other speakers. Just shared that kind of word of encouragement, like, when's the best time to start writing? Now. When's the best time to start a podcast? Now. Just do it, and
Exactly.
I got on the airplane and started writing, and kind of started at childhood and having some flashbacks about things when I was young, and we'll see how it goes. I'm not sure how long it's going to take. And he said something, John Gordon said, about when he wrote his first book, The Energy Bus, and he's so funny. He said he went out to sell and nobody would buy his book, and then all of a sudden, I guess quite a few people bought it in South Korea, but still not the U.S. So then he traveled around doing like 28 book selling, and 20 people would show up, 30 people would show up, and so then he put on their international author, and he said more people started showing up. Well, now he's sold like 3 million copies, and he's written 30 books.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, hey, if that's what he had to go through, that's
Right.
that resilience, that's that persistence. So keep it up, my friend. It's so important to do it. Life is short but precious, and we need to have those encouraging stories of what people went through. Because from the distance, I could be like, oh, he probably wrote a book and right away sold 1 million copies. No, he had a journey, and we're on these similar but different journeys. So keep up that resilience. And
Thank you. Yeah. And then sometimes you building the plane as you're flying. So I didn't really know much about podcasting when I started that. You have to be humble enough to ask for help. So I have a couple of friends that were podcasters, and they gave me tips on like what software to use to edit and what microphones to use and everything. So, and then the rest I would just figure out. And it's funny, between the blogging and the podcast, and then sometimes after I start, I'd listen to some how-to videos, and I was already doing stuff that they're telling you what to do. So yeah, so you just trust the process, trust yourself.
Yeah, and then get in some rooms too with people that might expedite your journey. I mentioned before, of course, but I've really enjoyed being a part of CLS and some of those conversations each week, and then also the side conversations, where you connect with other people and speaking into each other's lives about these type of things. So if anybody out there listening is looking, I'm sure there's a lot of good groups across the country or across the internet or different platforms, but so far, I've really enjoyed what Craig's put together there, and a few others that kind of connected with. So it's been a good part. We got a few more minutes to keep it kind of time sensitive. Go ahead and share anything comes to mind.
Well, yeah, community is huge, so that's a big part. I just discovered Craig last year at the end of around August, because as we've been talking about, I'm a computer programmer, but I'm looking to transition myself into a writer, and I love editing and everything. And he was a guest on a podcast, Passion, Love, Pursuit, and he was talking about his new book that was going to be coming out, The Reinvention Formula. And it's like, wow, this is, big signs, right? And not only that, but, the stuff he was saying was incredible as far as reinventing your life. And then he talked about how he ran 4 marathons in a year when he had not run before. So that he's talking about running, and here I am, TheRhodeRunner, and it was like so many connections. So then I pre-ordered his book, and then I followed him on Instagram, and then he private messaged me, and he told me about his book, and I said, I already ordered it. And then he told me about the CLS group, and I love it so much. And it's not even like it's not like a recruitment thing. It's not like a what do you call it, MLM or anything like that. It's just a group of, just a community, and everybody does something different. It's just like making connections, and it's incredible. Yeah.
I love that. I love that too. There was no pressure, right? I came across him. We had a quick phone call, and it was no pressure. Didn't feel greasy or slimy at all. It just, hey, there's this option if you're interested. Here's how it works, and very reasonably fee or whatever you want to call it to be involved for a year. And so glad I did. I just joined a month and a half ago. But I'm in that phase too, my friend, of reinvention. Construction for 30 years, still doing it. Actually going right to a job from here. Changing my clothes as soon as I get out of the studio, putting on a t-shirt and going to a job.
Right.
But I am in a process of getting reinvented. I just opened his book, so I'm only a few pages in, first chapter. But those type of tools are out there, folks. If you're hearing this, get a hold of Paul. He's so encouraging. Of course, the Inspiring Journeys podcast. You can learn more. How would any listener reach out and follow or find you?
Let's see. Inspiring Journeys is found anywhere where you can, any podcasting platform. And I'm also on Instagram, Inspiring Journeys Pod. And I'm also on Facebook. And I just finished creating my website, inspiringjourneys.net. And I should also mention that I did the 100 episodes of Journey the Roadrunner, but I felt like the runner part was making people think that it was only about running, but my interest is in people's journeys, so I want to share people's journeys, and so I wanted to rebrand the podcast. And Kerry Nelson is my podcasting partner, and she was a guest last year when she ran her first Boston Marathon. She's an adaptive athlete, an expert at obstacle course racing. And the first time I had her on, we just connected so well, we gelled so well. So it was just magic. So then I had her come on as a podcast, and we've been podcasting every week since the end of January and being consistent with that. So, and we have a lot of incredible guests on, like yourself. You were on, I believe, episode 5, if I remember right. Yeah. So
you and her too. That was great. I think it's the first time I've ever done one with a co-host. Like, well, I think that's what you call it, right? When
Right.
there's 2 people. There's hosting. And Carrie was awesome, and gonna look forward to doing one with her. And
yes.
her and her daughter are doing great, and
Yep.
she's got a few things going on. But so, and then what about just to find you directly, if you want to put that out there at all on
Sure.
Instagram? How do I find you?
Yep. So, yeah, in addition to the Inspiring Journeys, I also have TheRhodeRunner. It's and then RHODE Runner. That's on Instagram. And I also have a page on Facebook for that. So I'll post on there when I do runs and everything. And if anybody wants to, if they're not scammers or anything, they can follow me. we could be friends on Facebook, my regular Facebook page. So, yeah. Yeah.
I would encourage any listener that's looking to find out anything about these tools we've mentioned. Now you have the information, and get connected, folks. You know, it's so important to connect with each other in the right rooms, the right mindset. You know, a man that has friends must show himself friendly. And when you're in a circle of people that really want each other to win, it's not multi-level marketing by any means. It's not a, hey, hire me because of this. It's truly relational. And then maybe there's other transactional things that'll happen, you know, whether it's coaching, giving, or coaching, receiving, or, you know, I'm even thinking of things like, I wonder if once I get my rough draft written of my book, if Paul can actually help me and, you know, hire you to help me really get my book out there. And how cool that would be to say, at the same month that I started writing my book, somebody that helped me finish it or take it further. I don't know how to even go down those roads, but we'll talk more on that. But you know, the relational part of things is so much more important, and then the transactional is necessary. But no matter where you're at in life, folks, reach out, connect, and follow your dreams. Have resilience, be encouraged, show vulnerability. You know, the most beautiful thing I've realized this last 2 years, I'm at 28 months clean and sober right now, and I've become more and more vocal. Yeah, feeling good. And I've become more and more vocal with talking about those topics and a lot of others too. But the more I'm vocal with addiction and addiction prevention and mental health and anxiety and the topics that are dear to my heart, it's naturally created the circle that I'm supposed to interact with the most. Don't get me wrong, I love everybody, but for some people I might be too much, I might be too open, and I respect that. But I still think by being yourself, you'll naturally create who you're supposed to really interact with on a weekly basis, instead of trying to be somebody you're not, to please people and have more connections, but they're not real connections.
Yeah.
So be yourself, and that's all I got for today.
Yeah, be authentic. Yeah.
Any last words before we sign off here, my friend?
Thank you so much for this. This is a lot of fun, and yeah, it's so funny. When I was younger, I was like painfully shy. I hardly said anything. I was quiet in school and everything, and now I have 2 podcasts, and you can't shut me up once I start talking. So
yeah. Well, and the nice thing about technology, right? If somebody's listening to this and they wanted to shut us off, they have an off button, pause button.
Yeah.
Hopefully y'all don't do that. Hopefully you listen till the very end.
Yeah, and it's never too late to follow your dreams, because I've been meant to be a writer since the beginning, and now I'm 53 years old, and I'm just getting started.
You're writing, you're running, you're doing 2 podcasts. Keep it up, my friend.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right, have a great weekend. All right. Take care.
Thank you so much for watching today's episode on the Joy Hour podcast. Don't forget to check out some of our other episodes for more powerful discussions. Want to keep up with new episodes? Be sure to subscribe. And as always, we'd appreciate it if you like, share, and comment your favorite part of this episode right down below.